Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our cup chat this morning. When we say almost every Wednesday, we really mean it.
Almost.
Almost, because we actually have, so birding with extension is not the only thing in our job that we do. And so since while many people think probably getting ready for birding the border is our busiest time of year, I have to share that that's not always the case. So as an ag and natural resource agent, my busiest times of the year are summer and spring, with a lot of 4-H activities for youth. And so I have, as soon as leadership Rio Diablo camp was over, I was off to another youth camp. I don't remember what I've done in the last 4 weeks, but I have slept at home 6 nights. So that's kind of the telltale story. And Maureen, you have been hustling and bustling too. What have you been up to?
Yeah, for extension specialists, or for wildlife specialists at least, fall and summer are our busiest times of year. So you can see why Emily and I have been missing, because summer is for both of us the busiest time. So yeah, so the
There's
past
no
couple
one
weeks,
else to pick up the slack.
right? So this is the challenge. But no, so since Rio Diablo camp, I have helped with South Texas Buckskin Brigades, which actually I guess you were on the ball and I called in that week while I was out at the ranch for Buckskin Brigades. But then the week after that, we had a teacher workshop that was so awesome and so much fun. And if you are a teacher and you missed it, it's about using birding to connect the concepts of agriculture and habitat. And we are doing another one the first week of August, just the virtual portion. So that week we got to do the virtual and an in-person training, but we'll do the virtual portion again in August, and it is free and it is 15 CPE credits. So if you're a teacher and you're interested, that's our plug for that. And then after that, I don't know, we did other stuff.
And that
I
would
don't
be
even
good.
remember.
Let's roll back to the teacher workshop
Yeah.
just for a second. That is, you do not have to be a birder to or love
No.
birds to come. Definitely not. But you are going to this is targeted for our science teachers, correct?
Yes, for science and or ag teachers. Yeah, and it's grades 8 through 12, or 7 through 12, sorry.
All right.
And
so
we
just
don't
think about
mind
that.
and we don't mind if other people come as well if you're outside of that 7 through 12 range. We just have our TEKs and our lesson plans meant for that 7 to 12. So if you're outside of that, you'll have to do a little bit more of your adjusting and customizing, but you're still welcome to come. So
Yes. And see, Maureen, as an ex-teacher, I would say thank you for looking up all the TEKs for me. And I would be appreciative.
Yes,
oh my
that was one of the things that our partners at the welder helped us out with, was to get those looked up. So
Okay, well, this morning we are going to chat about just everything it takes us to, but we do have a topic that we're going to start with. And so we're going to talk about birds' feet this morning. Now,
yes.
I'm not a foot person, and so this topic does incredibly gross me out. Not only because I don't like feet, but I think birds' feet can be creepy looking and feel scaly, weird. Yeah, I'm out. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that this is an awkward conversation for me.
Well, and I should throw out there that when we talk about birds' feet, this is more of just learning about birds and something interesting, and less, what we're going to talk about today doesn't have as much to do with identification. It does a little bit with kind of like learning your groups of birds, but there's not really going to be a time that you're trying to figure out identification based on like anisodactyl versus pamprodactyl feet. Like we'll talk about the color of the legs sometimes, but any birds that are similar enough that you're trying to identify from one species to the other, they probably have the same feet already. So it's more just about like the different groups of birds and their adaptations for those feet.
Gotcha. Well, they still gross me out no matter what. Anyways, so my first question for you. I'm so ready for your answer. I thought of this one this morning. So are birds and dinosaurs related? Because if you think of like
Ooh.
the movie Jurassic Park and what's the dinosaurs that fly? The
The pterodactyls.
velociraptors or the
The pterodactyls are
pterodactyls.
the ones that fly. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So the pterodactyls in the bird cages are remind me of birds because they put them in a bird cage in Jurassic Park. And so
Yes.
therefore my question is, are birds and dinosaurs related? Because their feet look the same.
Their feet
I know
do
you're
look the
gonna love
same.
this
And
one.
I do love it because what is it in the most recent Jurassic Park, like the opening shot where the foot comes down but it's a crow, right? It's like they're about to show a crow in the opening scene of the movie, but as soon as that foot comes down, you're like dinosaur, and then it's not, it's a bird. So this actually would be a super fun hot topics about just discussing like the how we got from dinosaurs to birds, because I know only a little bit of it, but I'm sure there's people out there that know a lot more than I do, and this would be a super fun like discussion of which evolutionary path the
Which
dinosaurs
came
took.
first, the dinosaur or the bird?
So yeah, so there are definitely a lot of scientists say dinosaurs didn't go extinct, they just turned into birds. And it's not that simple, right? Like they didn't just turn into birds or, but the point is that we have a lot of animals today that we've had for a long time in some form. So if you look at like alligators, crocodiles, the whole family of crocodiles is a great example because those have been around for millions of years, largely
And
unchanged.
the old versions look creepy. I mean, like
Yes,
weird.
but also not that different when you consider how much some species change over millions of years. And then you look at how little really something like a crocodile has changed from a long time ago to now. They're weird, but when you consider that, entirely different species develop over that time versus like just some appearance differences, it's really amazing how much they've stayed the same. And that really means that they've been adapted for those conditions millions of years ago, and they're adapted for these conditions now. So birds, the main question going from dinosaurs to birds, well, there's a few questions. This gets really complicated really fast, but there's one question is, how did we get to that flying part, right? That's
The
a
old
big
pterodactyls
question.
flew.
Yeah, they did. But how did we get there? Because that was presumably not the original state. So originally you had these, if we have a common ancestor with reptiles and we're coming from that, we don't have reptiles that fly. We have no true powered flight in our reptiles. We have some that glide, and we have reptiles and amphibians both, that like jump off of something and glide, but that true powered flight we don't have. And so where did that come from? And so that's one of the debates as to how that developed. And I'm reaching way back into my ornithology class from a long time ago, and I don't remember all the details, but there's like a bottom up or a top down, did they start from the ground and glide, or I don't remember. And then the question too is, how did feathers evolve, right? Because even pterodactyls, they flew, they didn't have feathers. Where did the feathers come from? So that's an important question as well, is why feathers, where feathers? And then, one of our big differences that we talk about today between reptiles and amphibians is that our reptiles are quote unquote cold-blooded while our birds are warm-blooded. And cold-blooded and warm-blooded are really inaccurate terms, but the bottom line being that reptiles tend to not generate their own body heat and birds do. And so where did that start? And this could be a whole nother discussion too, is
You've
cold-blooded
taken this
versus
a lot
warm-blooded.
further than I ever thought you would.
There's so many things to say about it, is the thing, because like cold-blooded versus warm-blooded is it's not a hard and fast. It's not like a you are this and you are this, because there's some debate. I was just talking with my dad about this the other day, is were dinosaurs basically, were they endotherms because of how large they were, right? So they had some inertia, or they could maintain some stable body temperature because of how big they were. So there's a lot of questions there. So that's another big question, is when did we get that, that metabolism that keeps your own body heat going that we see in birds. So the good thing is we just came up with like 3 future cup chats. So
let me take you back to the feet portion, Because that's
feet
what the
portion,
question
important.
was about.
It was. When did we get
But you
from?
brought up,
Yeah,
I just said,
and
are
they're just not
dinosaurs
that
and birds
different,
related
right?
because their feet look the same?
Their feet are
They're
similar.
not.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then, so
They're
here,
related,
so
but the question is, where do we make that shift?
how?
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's as you brought up a whole lot of other points to get us back to the feet topic.
Yeah.
And I like how I'm using my hands to depict feet this whole chat.
Well, that's what I was ready to do too. I was like practicing like my anisodactyl versus my zygodactyl feet. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What you do in the mornings might be a little bit questionable. So, anyways, the back to feet. So one thing you talked about was adaptations a lot, about how, you know, we look at the evolution of the alligator and the crocodile and how those have changed over time, but they look the same. So birds have adapted to many different scenarios and have different feet adaptations for those different purposes. So we have birds that scurry up the tree like a woodpecker. That's the question. And then you've got birds that perch, blah, blah, blah. And then, do any of our birds hang upside down like bats?
They do not. That'd be fun if they did, but they do not. We don't have any of those. But the cool thing, we'll start with that. The cool thing is they can sleep standing up. And so that's the most, first of all, let's talk about toe arrangements. So we have birds that have their toes separated and those that have their toes not separated in some form or fashion. So whether that's webbed or lobed, those are still separated. Let's just talk about like our birds that have separate toes, like pretty much anything you're going to see on land. And so the first toe arrangement is what we call a nisodactyl. And what that refers to is, so basically what we're talking about is the birds have, well, they have 4 toes. So think about, I'm going to try to do this. Think about, I'm going to get rid of my pinky because that's easier to do. I'm going to get rid of my pinky. So you've got the 3 toes going out front, and then what is called the hallux is like kind of like the thumb. What's really cool about anisodactyl birds, which is all of our perching birds, all of our passeriformes, all pretty much most of the birds you're going to see have this anisodactyl toe arrangement. And what's cool is that for us, when you relax your hands, your fingers are just dangling, right? So my fingers are not doing anything when I relax. So if I were to fall asleep holding on to something, I would let go, right? Because that's my relaxed state. And birds, the way that their tendon is in this hallux and in these toes is this is their relaxed state. So when they relax, they clamp down. And so what that means for our perching birds is that even if they fall asleep, they relax to this. So it's weird to think about the using your muscles to let go, because for us, you just let go. That's the relaxed state. But for a bird, this is the relaxed state, is to hold on. And so if they did fall asleep and got blown over, I guess they could temporarily be upside down. I'm sure they would wake up. Like if they fell over and got upside down, they'd be like, oh no, but they wouldn't fall off. They would hang upside down instead of falling off. So that's, if anybody out there has ever come across a bird temporarily hanging upside down, I'm sure they didn't do it on purpose, but I'd be super entertained by that because yeah, theoretically they should just hold on upside down.
They should just do a little loop-de-loop.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Just do a little loop-de-loop. Stephanie and Louisa are joining us this morning, so thanks guys for watching live. No, and it was just making me think about talk about the Olympic trials right now, and like the gymnast on the what you call those,
on the
high bars.
High bars.
Yeah, the thing. Yeah. I took gymnastics once when I was little. I never got so advanced to go around the whole thing.
Yeah, I think I got kicked out probably when I was like 5. They were like, she's terrible at this.
Some of us don't have the best. Okay, so we've talked about perching birds, that this is their relaxed state. So then let's move to the next toe configuration.
My very favorite of all, because the word is so cool, is zygodactyl. And that's just a really fun word.
And that sounds like a dinosaur.
It does sound like a dinosaur, although I don't know if any of dinosaurs had zygodactylus feet or not. But so basically the toes on a zygodactylus bird are arranged in pairs. So you have basically 2 in front and 2 behind. I can't show this. So they're gonna go like this. And so that's why when you see a woodpecker and it like ratchets up the tree, that's what its little feet and its tail, they use their tails as well, but their feet are able to grasp onto that tree instead of perching on a branch. So all of our perching birds, you've got to have something to grasp onto. But on our woodpeckers, those toes are rotated around to the back so that they can perch right next to that wood. Because if they had perching feet, like if they had those anisodactyl feet, they wouldn't be able to get right up next to the bark and drum on it. You'd have to like sit on a branch and kind of lean over or do something awkward. But so that foot adaptation allows them to be right up there next to it, because their feet are basically, you know, pressed flat against the bark, but they've got 2 toes going up and 2 toes going down. So that's my favorite, just because it's a fun word. So,
and so other than woodpeckers, do any? Oh wait! But other than woodpeckers, did anybody else have zygodactyl feet? No, not really.
Yes, I feel like there's another one that does that I'm not thinking of. I feel like there is some other, but I could be wrong. Woodpeckers are definitely the most common. I'm gonna check on that one and see. So
okay, what's the next one?
Okay, so we have really 3 others. These ones are not as common as the anisodactyl and zygodactyl. So syndactyl, S-Y-N, often that prefix refers to something being together. And so the 3rd and the 4th toes, so the outer toe and the middle, are united along most of that length, like they're fused together, and they have kind of a toe pad in common. So we see this like in a kingfisher. And this one I actually don't know the adaptation for as to, you know, as to what particularly that does. But so you've basically got, you've basically just got that fusion on those, and they are also like I'm not going to explain this well. Can I actually share my screen? Well, of course I can share my screen. I have the power to share my screen. Let me share my screen because it looks a lot better than me pretending to be a bird. Okay.
Okay.
So this is just an example that I found online. But so A is our perching feet, and B is our zygodactylus I talked about, with 2 going forwards and 2 going backwards. But our syndactyl, which is the one I'm talking about right now, is this D. So you can see we've got those middle ones.
So their middle one is
are
so
fused.
It's almost like
so
it's almost like a how do you do with your middle one.
Live long and prosper.
Extra foot. I've got an extra one.
Yeah.
I don't need my.
Well, yeah, we have extra toes. Yeah, you don't need your thumbs. So it is kind of like a.
Oh my
goodness.
Yeah. It's so hard. Everybody.
That's kind of tricky. That's harder than this.
Try that.
That is harder. Woo.
Okay.
Woo. Okay. So I don't 100% know. It is a nice hand workout. Why they're fused, other than if we look, so I'm gonna scroll up real quick and we're gonna peek at kind of our next topic. If we think about a raptor that has those claws and is gonna really grab onto something, having that fused makes this a little grabbier than our perching feet. It allows us to grab things better. And if we're talking about kingfishers, which are holding on to slippery fish, then that may help them grab better. Yeah, but I don't know that that's the official thoughts on why that adaptation. So okay, and then we have heterodactyl is that letter C, where you can see we've got some going forwards and some going backwards, but they're very evenly arranged. So I'm gonna scroll up real quick and remind myself it's only in trogons. Okay, so it's the inner toe is the one that's going the other way. So this has more to do, this is kind of where if you think about it like your thumb and your fingers, that zygodactyl is going this way and heterodactyl is going this way. So it just has to do with which toe is where. The bottom line is that it's very similar to zygodactyl, and we only find it in trogons, which are usually not found in Texas. We sometimes have trogons coming into Texas. So that's not one to know as much.
Okay.
And then last is pampered. Okay, so E is pamprodactyl, And that outside toe, it can rotate. So you can see this diagram here, it's showing it going from being out here to it can also rotate around to the back. So you can use it for multiple things. And I don't remember, I'm gonna scroll back up and see who we find that in. I don't remember. Yeah, but so all 4 of those toes are gonna go out front, but that one can go to the back. So yeah, so those are different toe types.
Gotcha.
And then of course, as you can see that I've been scrolling quickly past, there's other types of adaptations as well, right? So we have raptorial, so like what we find in a raptor, with just the main point is that we've got those really strong claws, or talons is what we typically call them. And then we've got all these different adaptations that we find in water birds. So these are primarily, these are probably all pamprodactyl, all those toes are going forward. But the question is, yeah, how much are they webbed? So for example, you know, when we think about a duck, right, you're thinking about palmate. That's the whole thing is webbed, except we've got that back toe that's free, it's just hanging out. Whereas totopalmate, which is what we find, like it says in a cormorant, is going to be all the way webbed across all 4 of those. So, and then semipalmate, it's going to go, it's back, the webbing goes back part of the way. It's not the whole thing being webbed, which, so it mentions a semipalmated plover. This is a good adaptation for an animal that, or for a bird that maybe that webbing may help it swim sometimes, or it may be helping it just to walk on soft substrates, but you're not doing as much swimming as a duck or a cormorant. And then that lobate one is really interesting, and we see that in grebes, where again, we've still got, they're not all connected, but each toe has that lobe on it that really helps catch the water as they swim. Because if you think about, you know, the palmate, you know, having that webbing all the way across, if you've ever worn flippers when you go swimming, swim flippers, it makes you go so much faster, right? Because you've got that broader surface area across which you're catching the water. And so lobate is just kind of a different compromise between that. So instead of like wearing a flipper, it would be like if you just had, you know, little like if your fingers were wider, you would catch more water than you do, but not the same as if you had like a swim glove where it's all webbed. So
Well, and if you
yeah,
think
so
about
those are the
that, if you think about that a little bit, if you're wearing flippers, how difficult it is to walk on land.
That is a great point, because people probably know, like commonly with ducks, they're goofy on land because yeah, you got to do like the whole flip the foot up to get past the web. Yeah, and other adaptations that birds have, ducks, at least their feet are still like, they're set farther back on their bodies, but they're still kind of underneath them. Whereas if we look at something like a grebe that has those lobed toes, that lobes make it a little bit easier to walk, but their feet are so far back on their bodies that they're like really off balance. And so when they try to walk, it just doesn't work very well. And they actually cannot take off from the ground. They have to start flying from the water. They can't start flying from the ground because they're just so off balance. But yeah, but that as an adaptation for swimming, they're amazing at swimming and diving. So there's those trade-offs, right? When we talk about different adaptations that any animal has, you can do something really awesome, but you can't do everything really awesome. There's going to be a trade-off somewhere. So.
Right, just like we all have very different personality traits and what our strengths and weaknesses are.
Yep.
So, fun fact I was thinking about while you were talking about this is a little bit of why we, we talk about getting our feeders out, and sometimes we talk about fun with feeders on Cub Chat, but you know, the interesting point of some of that is like when I was setting up some of our feeders for birding the border, I had to be very thoughtful of where I was putting my feeders and what birds I wanted to attract, or if my feeders had the correct perches for the birds that I was hoping would visit them. And so like one thing I know that one thing we thought about was I made some orange feeders, and we just thought, you know, that they would perch enough. I had enough perch area around them, and we weren't seeing those birds utilize them as much. And so I went back in and added some perches with some nails to try to help foster that. And it actually then allowed those birds to really utilize my my very simple, very cheap orange feeders. So as you put up your bird feeders, or you're making bird feeders or bird houses, make sure that you're thinking about some of those adaptations as to what you're trying to attract to your feeders.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it can really help you be species specific because, if you think about, we had an oriole this year come and land on our hummingbird feeder, and they'll do that sometimes, but they're really too big for them, right? And they are, kind of make it swing all over, and their feet are big enough that those little tiny hummingbird perches don't work, and so they try to hold on to the whole feature. So yeah, thinking about orioles have relatively large feet, so if you want them to sit on an orange feeder, you need a decent perch and a decent size perch, whereas a hummingbird, if you're having problems with orioles, you can get the hummingbird feeders that don't have any perches, so it's just smooth around those ports. And hummingbirds have no problem with that because they're just going to hover while they eat anyhow. So one more fun word fact, because you know that I love words and languages, but the family name for swifts is Apodidae. And that prefix A in Latin means without, and pod meaning feet. So swift feet, and hummingbirds, I think, used to be under this until they realized they're pretty different from swifts. But their family name literally means they don't have feet, because swifts have such small feet that when they're flying and they spend so much time flying, it looks like they don't have feet, but they do. They have anisodactyl feet. They have those perching feet, just like most of our birds do. So.
Well,
yeah. So, other thing, I'm so glad you mentioned feeders, because this is kind of an emerging topic, is that there have been some cases of a bird eye disease that are going around. And there's, just so everybody knows, if you're interested about this, Texas Master Naturalist is actually putting together some information about this. And that would be fun for us to stream that also, huh, Emily? We could if we can stream off of theirs, maybe. I don't know if that works, but if not, we will post the links and direct all of you to there. My recommendation right now is that if you are concerned, clean your feeders. Go clean your feeders today if you haven't for a while, because that's so important to keep from spreading any type of bird disease. But if as we kind of increasing concern, and as we try to figure out what exactly is going on, I would even recommend just taking feeders down for now, and until we kind of get to a better spot. Clean your water features, or take your water features down. We've had so much rain in most of the parts of the state that birds do not need it. And you may not see them using it much anyhow right now. Take the feeders down, take the waters down until we figure out what exactly is going on. And we'll talk more about that it should be coming out soon. I don't have a date yet, but we'll definitely share that with everybody when we do. So
and just for everyone out there who loves your M&M analogy, on why it's important to clean feeders and things like that, why don't you go ahead and give that, because I think it's a great one.
I do love my M&M analogy. Yes, so if I had a bowl of M&Ms, this is just kind of to get the concept of why it's important to clean our bird feeders, because sometimes we don't think about that. But birds are not picking up things and putting them in their mouths.
Or how this disease virus is being transmitted.
Right.
Just to think about
it's being spread. Right. They're not picking things up with their hands, and they definitely don't have forks or anything like we do. Emily and I would do this, or I've probably done this. If I was eating, say, a bowl of, I'm eating a bowl of M&Ms with a great big spoon. Kind of sounds like a good idea. But if I was eating that with a spoon and then I passed that to Emily and she had her own spoon, no big deal. She would eat those. But if I was to stick my face in the bowl of M&Ms and eat them like that and then pass it to Emily, and she was to stick her face in the bowl of M&Ms and eat them like that, that's what our birds are doing. And depending on how well you know somebody, you may or may not tolerate that. But definitely, if my little one came home from Mother's Day out and stuck her face in the bowl of M&Ms, and she's got, snot and everything going on, and then hands that to Emily and says, "Hey, Emily, do you want some M&Ms?"
No, I do
not. And y'all, Emily's pretty like the opposite of a germaphobe. And I still think she would not want the, toddler, snotty toddler face in a bowl of M&Ms. I don't think she wants those M&Ms.
That is affirmative.
So yeah, if you think about, that's how your birds are eating, at feeders and even on the ground, because they're putting their face right there. They have, tongues and saliva just like we do. And that's all getting shared in a bit. And especially this time of year, especially because we've had rain. So we've had that moisture and humidity and heat and bacteria and viruses love all of that.
You know what
stuff.
also loves moisture and warmth? Funguses.
And fungus, yeah, which funguses can be super deadly in bird feed as well. So yeah, all of that. I think this is even worse if we consider, you know, like a bowl of blueberries that we're doing this with. If you put that in the fridge, little safer than if you leave it out all day in the sunshine. Now it's really gross. But so that's what's happening in your bird feeders. And then similarly for a bird bath, I might take a drink of tea and share it with Emily, and we might do that. We might be okay with that. But if I was to stick my whole face in the tea and lick it up with my tongue and then hand it to you, you'd have to be pretty
I've got a better one, even better than that. I am not, if you go take a bath, I am not then going to reuse your bath water. No, thank you.
That's a good point, right? That's what birds do. And on some level, when we think about that happening in nature, like, yes, that's what happening. But this is part of why birds like the sound of dripping water, is because that indicates it being fresh. Because if I get in a quickly flowing stream, if Emily and I are going to go swimming in a river together,
no biggie.
Totally good. Water's flowing, it's fresh. But yeah, I hop in my bathtub and take a bath. Emily does not want to take a bath after me. That's a great analogy.
No, but I think that's it. So just cleaning those, I mean, even if you have a water feature and you have that flowing water, that's great. Just go ahead and take some time to clean that at some point. Because it'll kind of keep that fresher. So anyways, I have lots of, I mean, we could probably talk about diseases and funguses because that's right up my alley, but unfortunately,
I know it's a whole other topic.
It's a whole other topic. And then, you know, as you look at wildlife versus domestic livestock, it's a whole different topic, and can get quite complicated. So, we will share the link to when that Texas Master Naturalist program is coming out. If we can stream it live on our Facebook or on our YouTube channel, we will definitely look at doing that. Trying to think of anything else that we need to talk about. I mean,
I think at this point, if we keep talking, people are worried we're gonna come up with more analogies about how to transmit disease.
Oh yes,
because we took this from M&Ms to taking a bath together, and it's like it's
a bit much, but you know, it's true.
Back in the day, that's what they used to do, right? Like dad got to take a bath first, and then mom, and then you'd like work your way from the oldest to the youngest kid. And
well, and you think about, I remember like. So fun and weird. I mean, but I kind of think back, like as teenagers, you would put your swimsuits on if you couldn't go swimming and get in a big like hot tub thing. Like if because big jacuzzi baths were like a thing. And that's what that has made me think of. And now I'm just like, oh my God, how gross.
Chlorine. That's what chlorine is for, right? Lots and lots of chlorine. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Chlorine for teenagers, but clean your bird baths for the birds. So
well, anyways, thank you everyone for joining us this week for Cup Chat. We do remind you that we are on almost every Wednesday. We have had some time off between Rio Diablo birding camp and now. I know we've come on a couple of weeks, but we know we have not been as good as we should have been. Trying to think what else, but we were glad to be back, and hopefully we'll see you next week. I know that I won't be here next week. We'll be on the road. So maybe not next week. Again, almost every Wednesday. So we'll hop back on the following Wednesday and see y'all later in July. So thank y'all everyone for joining us, and we will try to act like we're a little bit more alive on social media. We have epically failed. We are sorry.
But I have cool things to post that I just haven't gotten there yet. I took some good pictures when we were doing our teacher workshop. So.
Well, we'll be sharing some stuff, but please know we are alive and well, and are working on birding with extension stuff for y'all. Speaking of which, really quick, if you are a Texas Master Naturalist and are going to Texas Master Naturalist Conference, we want to encourage you to pick us. I don't know if soliciting picking is allowed. I mean, I feel like we could lie.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, it's not, the registration isn't open yet, so people can't do it yet. But if they're like thinking, we've got it on their radars now to be like, hey, come join us.
We are actually helping and supporting a bird walk at some place near the convention site. Not sure exactly the locale. I mean, there is a locale. I just don't remember it off the top of my head.
Yes.
We are excited to,
Yeah.
we will Birding with Extension that one up. We're super excited to have everyone join us. It's about a 3-hour bird walk on Saturday morning. Yes. And then Friday, Maureen and I are speaking on making your case for bird ID. So whether you are looking to teach someone about how to kind of have a process for bird identification, or you're looking for a process for bird identification, you should definitely check out our new presentation, Making a Case for Bird ID. And then Maureen, you are speaking again.
Yes, I'm also speaking with Amanda Gobeli from the Natural Resources Institute and Ileana Pena from Texas Wildlife Association about small acreage land management. And again, whether you're a master naturalist who has small acreage, which generally we're going to define by like 200 acres or less, or if you're if you're just interested in why that's important, why we work with those people, why we do outreach to landowners who have those small acreages, that should be a good session as well. So.
Anyways, I've used up our 30 minutes officially today, so please make sure you pick us when you're registering for Texas Master Naturalist. Mary Pearl, if you are on, we are officially soliciting participants to pick us. I don't know if that's allowed. We're not sure if it's allowed, but we are. So anyways, everyone have a great Wednesday, and we will see y'all later. Bye.